There are so many amazing art challenges here on YouTube, and I love watching them. They are highly entertaining. However, most of them tend to minimize supplies. So we have some that are like one marker challenge or three color challenge, or how much can I do in 1 hour? It's about restricting things. So today, just to be different, because I am, and for whimsy, I decided to turn that completely on its head and find out what would happen if I used every single art supply I own on one project. This could be so much fun. It also could be utter chaos. Shall we find out which of those two it proves to be? As you may be able to see, I do own a wealth of art supplies. I have been collecting them for 20 years and I do have a lot. So to make this challenge within the realms of possibility, I'm not talking about using every single pen that I own, every paint, every crayon, etc., etc. But rather I have grouped my supplies into categories. So for example, we have alcohol markers, we have watercolour markers, we have paint, etc. Now in preparing for this video, I have gone through all of my art supplies and we have 32 categories to work through. So I think we really need to get started. I am going to use this gorgeous little mushroom girl to create this artwork today. I have had this idea of doing this challenge in my head for a long time, and in my head I was always going to do a portrait, but I was going to do a girl with long flowy hair because I thought there was the opportunity to hide multiple mediums in the hair. But I didn't. There was something about this girl that really spoke to me. I really wanted to paint her, and so she is what I have chosen to work on today. Now I have turned her into a digital stamp, so if you would like to play along with this challenge, or you would just like to colour her in normally and not throw everything but the kitchen sink at her, then feel free. The details for the download are in the description box below, and I would love to see what you create with it. So if you do choose to do that, please do tag me, because I love seeing how one piece of artwork can look so different by the way different people approach it. I'm starting off with acrylic ink as my underpainting, partly because it's acrylic, I knew it wasn't going to move, and I'm not used to working with underpainting, so I thought that's not going to react when I put different mediums on top of it. So I put that down as the base, apart from on the face, because I knew I was going to use alcohol markers, and I'm not used to using underpainting with alcohol markers, so there was enough new stuff going on today without tackling that. Next I did sprays. Sprays are not my favourite thing, but yeah, we put up some sprays down, and then I also am going to get some pigment powders, and what I use for this particular instance is my brushes. Now some of the mediums that I put on this I don't feel got their full glory. Brushes is one of them. I just kind of put a little bit of a sprinkling in and they sort of melded into the background, but technically I have used it. And yeah, this is how the background is looking. Good morning. So we are on day 2 of this insane project. My hands are still green. I have cleansed myself, but they're still green. Yes, we're on day 2 and I'm beginning to get very nervous. I already knew this was going to be an insane project, but I've only done 3 mediums and there's 32. So I've got 31 still to go and I don't know how I'm going to do it. So let's crack on with what I do know I'm doing. We're going to work on her face today, and yeah, hopefully this is doable, who knows. Thankfully for this little section of the project, I am well within my comfort zone, which was a relief, because to be honest, throughout most of this project, I am definitely out with my comfort zone. But I love my alcohol markers. I have for a long time. I used to exclusively work in just alcohol markers, so a piece of artwork from beginning to end would just be done with alcohol markers. However, nowadays I tend to enjoy mixing my mediums a little bit more. This is one of my favourite things to do when it comes to faces, is mix it with soft pastels, and I really like that. I think it gives a really soft blended look, although you can achieve that with alcohol markers, but it's almost like putting makeup on, and I just think, I don't know, it's something really fun about that. So I did layer with fixative between the different layers of pastels. This is me trying to brighten her cheeks because I want to give her some mushroom makeup. The original intention with these pastel pencils was to deepen that mushroom makeup, but something about the pastels already being on there and the fixative, I couldn't get the pastels to work on her face. So I changed direction slightly and popped it in her hair. Now, Last week I did go to Sketchbook Club and we were doing something different that I've never done before, which was mixing pastels with water. So that's a whole new revelation, which we will be exploring further on this channel at a later date. But I used that technique here just to create the base for her hair and give it a little bit of texture, and I actually really liked the texture that it gave. Nail colours. These are something that have sat on my shelf dusty for years because I've never used them. However, I pulled them out for a prompt book recently and I've discovered I quite like them. So I definitely need to play more with these, but they were perfect for her lips. They gave a really nice creamy look, like you had just applied lipstick to her, and it being able to overlay with the nail colours meant I could get that sort of nice juicy highlight in the centre of her lips. Moving on to acrylic gouache. I have like 3 different types of gouache that I had to cover in this particular painting. So this one is the acrylic gouache, and I am going to use this to create the mushroom hat. So I mixed together that sort of soft mushroom colour and cover the inside of her little hat there. And then eventually I will come in and do the cap of her hat as well. So again, the reason I kind of went for acrylic gouache here was because I knew that I would want to be adding more detail. I wanted to add more detail with Inktense pencils, which meant I was going to be using water on it and a few other things as well. So I wanted the base layer to stay put. Because acrylic gouache has that acrylic base, it meant when I add water in future, it will be fine, it will not move. So hence the choice for that one. I do what I always do and deepened the shadow with some pencils, and I actually put that extra pencil work in her face because the pastels hadn't worked earlier. It looked a bit grainy, which I didn't like, so I then used the alcohol marker, it came back in, and it just helped to smooth that out. And it is amazing how you can get a nice smooth blend with your pencils by pulling out an alcohol marker. So we're moving to my Inktense. This is for my watercolour pencil category, and the reason I went for these pencils, actually these are the only watercolour pencils I own, so yeah, I didn't cheat on this at all. But the fact that they are ink based also means that once I have wet them, they will be permanent. And again, working in this sort of mixed media way, that was really good and important. You really did have to think about what will layer on top of each other, what will move, and kind of think about, you know, as I said, like if you had a water-based medium and another water-based medium on top, would you create mud? So it did take a little bit of kind of trust in the process and thinking about how it was all going to work. There's a few times that caught me out a little bit in the end, but in general, I did try to kind of keep that in mind. So we move on now to our watercolour pens, and I am adding a little bit more detail into the hair, just darkening that up and smoothing it out just a little bit. But I think she is beginning to look really, really cute, and I'm absolutely loving the way her face has come together. Really, really happy. Now at this stage, I had not done a huge amount of mediums, and I was like nervous about how on earth I was going to get everything else into this particular project. So we pull out our acrylic markers and the extra detail on her hat. We have a few roses and a few extra little leaves, and I decided to pop those down with the markers, and that is kind of like all the base layer for the face finally done and ready to move on to the background and see how on earth we were going to get the rest of the mediums into this project. Okay, so here's where we're at. I have to say I am loving how it's looking so far. Absolutely adore it. If I was doing a normal art piece, I'd be delighted. I'd feel like I was on the home straight. I'd pull out the mediums that I'm comfortable with and work to finish it. However, according to my messy sheet, we have done 12 items out of 32. I still have a lot of mediums to go. Some of them are not too bad. Some of them are like the acrylic gel pens, the biros. They can be sort of done as last minute wisps and bits and bobs, so that's okay. It's things like we have watercolors and watercolor ink. I'm not sure how they're going to sit on top of what we've got. We've got acrylic down, we've got pastels down. They're going to move the background, so I'm not quite sure how to incorporate those. Also, I'm having a bit of a dilemma. I'm not sure whether I should lighten around her and sort of darken the edges, which is kind of more what I'm thinking that we're going to do. or whether I should darken around her. Also how to go about these things, I don't know. So yeah, this is definitely a challenge. It's a challenge I'm not sure I'm going to be successful at. So it's currently 7:45, Sunday night. We've maybe got another couple of hours tonight before I need to go to bed, and then we need to finish tomorrow. So hopefully I'll get my head around it pretty soon. So I opted for lightening things up around the edge of the girl. So I pull out my jelly gouache. As you can see, it's dried to a crisp. But I did find this technique worked, that I pulled a chunk of it out and sprayed it with water and managed to reactivate it. So that kind of worked okay. So if you're in the same position, I think you can reactivate them. I just don't know that I can be bothered reactivating a whole palette. So this might be my way of dealing with that in the future. So I lightened around the girl, and then I ended up darkening around the edges using alcohol inks. This was addictive. I have forgot. It's been so long since I have played with alcohol inks, and now I really want to have a proper play, because I kind of started off going really canny, nice and slow, just put a little bit on, really careful that it doesn't drip on my girl and all of this sort of stuff. And then you kind of spray a bit down, and then you put a bit of blending solution in, and it moves and does something cool, and then you want to kind of add a little bit more. So it was immense fun, and I do love the drama it created. I'm absolutely delighted that that's the choice that I ended up going for, because normally I kind of put a shadow behind the main image, but I really like the fact that we've got the glow behind her, and then we have darkened the edges using the acrylic inks. I also have ink pads. I have many of them, so I just did a little bit of stamping in the background to add a little bit of detail, and just sort of like kept the text off her face a little bit. And there we go. That is kind of the background all sorted. And then finally, before I went to bed this evening, I decided to add a little bit of texture paste, mostly because I knew it would dry. Again, I have loads of texture mediums, so I'm just using the one texture paste, but that is to represent the category of texture mediums. And I used it to create the little dots of the mushrooms, which I love. It's Monday afternoon to be precise, and here's where we're at. I really hope to finish this today so that you guys are watching it on Friday. So that's where we're at. Cameras, there we go. Oh, look, there we go, if I hold it back. So it's getting there. We put the texture paste on last night, which was a good move because it's allowed it to dry overnight. Also, it was a good move because I was getting a little bit panicky about certain mediums like the watercolour ink, because a lot of what's gone on here now is acrylic and alcohol, and it's not really going to sit on top of that very well, but I have thought of a plan. So I'm going to do that now. But yeah, it's looking good. I kind of almost wish I wasn't doing this challenge, because I'm at the stage where I'm really nervous about ruining it. And normally I have the saying that if you're worried about ruining it, that's when it's time to stop. And if you don't like it, keep going till it's right. So yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. So let's pull the watercolors out and the gouache and get the next stage done. So I am just using the watercolors to add a little bit of foliage in the background. I think because she's a mushroom girl and we've darkened the background, I almost want to create a vignette of like leaves and give the illusion of like a forest nymph or something like that. So we've just put a little bit in, and then I was going to layer up some more leaves using gouache. And also, but then I sort of got distracted and decided to paint a little vine on her, like almost like a little tattoo or something, which I thought would be really cute. And then I decided to move on and do some eyeliner. This turned a disaster. I tell you, there's one thing about doing this project. I have learned to fix problems because I created quite a few problems in trying to use up the mediums, and I learned to have to fix. This was one of them. I put it down, hated it, and then had to lift it all back up. Okay, instantly regretting that choice. This is what I mean about I'm scared to kind of keep going, because I'm having to think of ideas of where to put these different mediums. And to be honest, her eyes were fine, and I was just going for like a little bit of eyeliner, and then I was like, oh, it needs to be a bit more blended. And so I put the watercolor a bit further up, or the gouache a bit further up, and I don't like a green eye. I've tried to lift it, but it's still a little bit green. So I'm going to try layering pastels over it, see if I can bring it back to what it originally was. If not, we might have to go acrylics. We've not used acrylics anyway, but I'm gutted. Hopefully by the time she has her big long eyelashes, we'll disguise that. Thankfully, I was able to pull this back when it came to the pastels. So that was good. And then I took a different direction with the gouache. I have to say though that doing this project has really helped me to push myself outside my comfort zone a lot more. There was so many times during this project that I was just thinking, I wish I could end it here. I wish I could just sort of finish off, add my kind of shadows, add my white doodly line and call it a day. But because I had more mediums to fit in, I had to keep thinking of ways to use them. So I ended up with this, it was really dark and moody. We've got all the extra details of the mushrooms. I'm using my paint sticks here to add the details to the mushrooms, but there was so many other elements that I had to add to it that I had to keep thinking about how I could put them in, and it changed the piece completely from what it had been if I hadn't been doing this challenge. So I do think it was a lesson on sometimes pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, trying something new, trying these challenges, because challenges can make you think about your art, your mediums differently, so that you end up doing something really different and you can end up with something that you really, really love. And so, yeah, I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed doing this. Some of these mediums here, like I've got the crayons in there and the pastels, there's just little elements to them. They're maybe not as much as there should be, but we got them all in there. This was me using Inktense blocks. I had bought these and never used them. I decided to use them just like paint. I have to say I was very nervous because I was working on her face, and Inktense, once it has been made wet, cannot be removed. It's permanent. So I was a bit nervous about doing something on her face, but thankfully it went okay. This was the one that had a lot of head scratching. I was wondering how on earth I was going to use the watercolour inks, but suddenly I remembered you can use them with a dip pen. So I ended up kind of adding bits of wisps to her hair, just kind of softening the line of her hair a little bit, and that got those in. And then finally we were down to some of the, more unusual things. So we added a little bit of texture using the crayons. I think a lot of extra texture went down to the base of that painting. And also I was coming back with mediums that I had used before. That was me pulling in a bit of gouache because I was thinking about how to pull the painting together. Now I come out with my acrylic. This was always my plan with the acrylic from the beginning, that I was going to kind of almost create black vine, except I've used Payne's grey and a forest green and mixed it together, so it kind of looks black but it's not quite, so it blends in with the painting really well. And I paint in all these dark vines and it just helps to add to that glowy effect of the overall painting. Come in with a few little gel pen highlights as well, and then using one of my favouriteest things ever, and that is these acrylic gel pens. Honestly, they are the best thing since sliced bread. It's acrylic paint, but you can get such a fine detail. So I was able to create a lovely glow on each of these leaves. Even though I was working with the pens, I came back with the acrylic paint because I decided we needed a bit more of a vignette look to the top of this painting. And so although at this stage I was making sure that I was getting all of these extra mediums in, I was also looking at the painting as a whole and thinking about how it all needed to be brought together so it worked really well. I used the biro just to give a bit more emphasis to these little things that we had painted in using the acrylic markers. They were a bit lost on the page by the time we added all the other leaves, so it just helped them to pop and lift off the page a little bit further. And now we are down to the fun stuff. So we have some gilding flakes, not something I would ever put on a painting, but it was on the list, so we had to do it. So we had a little bit of two-way glue and added them down and then sort of scraped that all off, and it just gave a little touch of magic. And I think the fact that we'd used the gold in the alcohol inks as well, it was already there in the background, so it ties it all together. Finally, I came in with the embossing powders, but I decided to use it more like a frantage style, and instead of using ink, I used a little bit of glycerine. All you need is something for the embossing powder to stick to before you heat it up. I love watching embossing powder heat up. I think it's one of the things that made me become a crafter, because it's just magic watching it transform. So that was it. We were adding all the weird stuff, and yet it's still looking really, really good. I am loving it. Oh my goodness. It's so funny because I don't view myself as an artist. I know that's weird, but I don't. I view myself as a crafter. And yet, look, I've made a whole painting. I absolutely love how it's turned out. We are almost there. All I have to do is add this. And I really don't want to because I love it, and yeah, but I also really do not want to be defeated. Okay, let's do this. I don't know why I had such a mental block with the gilding wax. I think possibly because I have gone too far with gilding wax in projects before, and so I was afraid of just going too heavy-handed and ruining it. In the end, I decided just to emphasise some of the gold bits that were already there, and because gilding wax works really well on texture, I added it to a couple of spots. Now, it would have been nice to have a nice satisfying peel here, but the alcohol inks had leaked. But I wasn't too distressed because, to be honest, I'd already intended to kind of cut it down to size to make the composition work a little bit better. And here she is, all completed. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. I love how it turned out, and I can't believe I've managed to use every single medium that I own in my craft room on one artwork. This was a fun challenge, and I absolutely love the results. I'm so excited. I absolutely love how this turned out. I'm so excited. There were so many points during this process that I was like, what am I doing? This is crazy. Why are you just making yourself do this? And I am so glad I did. I'm so glad I pushed through. I'm so glad I tried something different. Definitely check out art challenges. They really do push you outside your comfort zone, but then you can end up, discovering something you love. And look, I love her. I'm so excited that I kept going with this. In fact, I had so much fun that I'm going to tag some of my arty crafty friends here on YouTube because I think they would smash this challenge too. So first of all, I'm going to tag the lovely Chantel from Chantel Arts because she loves a challenge and her channel is full of them. I'm also going to tag David from Sin City Yeti Art because he is amazing. He's such an amazing artist. And we were chatting about some of the other challenges that he has done in one of our live streams the other day. So I think he would smash it. And also I'm going to tag the lovely Lil because she does kind of jump on quite a few challenges and she's such a good supporter of all art YouTubers here and you need to go check her out. So I hope all of those people have as much fun as I did creating Little Mushroom Girl. I will eventually, once these creators make their videos, do a playlist so you can find everyone nice and easy. If you do enjoy art challenges, then you may enjoy these next couple of videos here, and I will see you guys next Friday. Take care. Bye.